So you want to take some better photos with your phone? I got you covered. You know, the most popular camera in the world is the phone, the cell phone, because almost everyone has one and almost all of them have cameras. It doesn't make everyone a photographer, but it does give everyone the ability to capture some really wonderful moments. And most of the people that are taking pictures with their phone or videos with their phone are doing it to capture moments. So if you learn just a few things about how to hold your camera and some settings that I'm going to tell you about here in just a minute, then you're going to be able to make sure you capture some good footage, if not some great footage, because some of these cell phones can really capture some really incredible footage as long as you're following some of these guidelines the right way. And some of these things you don't hear very often. Some of them you may have heard before, but they're essential to taking good video or even good photo with your cell phone. Tip number one, clean the lens. So many videos and photos are just horrible. It's just because the lens is dirty. You got to remember to clean your lens, wipe it down. If you don't have a lens wipe, your shirt will do just fine. And get the front one too if you're going to use it. These camera lenses are very small, so any dirt at all, any smudging, anything that sometimes you can't even see with the visible eye is going to destroy whatever photo or video you're trying to take. One of the most important tips I can give you is turn your flash off. I don't know that I've ever seen flash on a cell phone photo that even looks usable. Most of the time it's just really bad. Do yourself a favor, turn your flash off and leave it off. Photos that have flash in them, they just don't look good. They also disturb whatever scene you're in. So, you know, if you're at a concert or you're, you know, at a ballet for your kid or, you know, wherever, flashes going off constantly are just, to be honest with you, they're pretty annoying. So, you know, use your slider to adjust your exposure, which brings me to the slider to adjust the exposure. When you tap the screen on your cell phone, you're gonna see a little sunshine appear, at least on iPhones. And I'm sure there's some way to do it with all the other phones, but on the iPhones, you'll see the sunshine. And what you wanna do is you wanna hold that sunshine down and you can swipe up slowly. And then if you need to go even more, you can bring your finger off the screen, retouch it on the screen, and then swipe up some more. And you can do the same thing to reduce the exposure. And this way you can expose the photo for the way that you want it to look. If you have a bright sky and you have a subject, you know, you wanna kind of get the whole scene so that it's, you know, just the right exposure. And a lot of times the phone is not gonna get it right. So you need to adjust it by holding that sunshine down and dragging it up for a brighter exposure and dragging it down for a darker exposure. Go into your settings on your camera and turn the grid on. Also make sure you're recording in 4K, 60 frames per second, and your slow-mo is set to 1080. And make sure your slow-mo is set to 1080 at 120 or 240. Because with the grid, you can line up the horizon. You can put whatever you're shooting, the subject of your photo, on one of the grid intersection lines. You just compose a much better video or photo by using your grid, and it doesn't get in the way of you trying to see what's in the scene. It's very thin on most of them, and you can just barely see it. In fact, in the sun sometimes you got to struggle to look for it, but your grid is really important to good photography or good videography on your cell phone. Next tip, turn your phone horizontal. The only time you want a vertical shot is if you're posting to something like Snapchat or Instagram stories. Everything else should be horizontal. That means Facebook, you know, on your wall of Instagram should be horizontal. All of the places that you're going to want others to consume your video or your photography is going to be pretty much in the horizontal format, except for those two. And there may be a few others, but as far as the main things and the main ways people are consuming videos and photos, It's Snapchat and Instagram stories like this, and maybe some of the other stories, I'm not sure, like YouTube stories or whatever, but for the most part, horizontal. Sometimes you don't know what your intended use is for the video or the photo. For me, what I do is I almost always do it both ways. Do it vertical, in case I want to put it on stories, and then horizontal to make sure I can cover everything else. So the next thing you need to do to make sure you're getting good videos or good photos on your phone is to get low. If you're standing up, then it's harder to get a foreground, and foreground's a big part of the picture. So get low and make sure you get a foreground in your picture or your video. Don't use the zoom on your phone. It's not like the zoom on a DSLR mirrorless type lens or even a camcorder. The minute you start zooming, the picture it's just not as good. It's nowhere near as good. And if you zoom all the way in, it's just trash. I mean, it's not usable. So get closer to whatever it is. Find a way to get closer. Now, don't get so close you put yourself in danger. I think you've seen or heard about stories where people are trying to get that epic selfie and they're trying to get closer and then they get too close and something bad happens. So you don't want that to happen, but definitely try to get closer to whatever you're shooting. One thing I didn't tell you is the focus. When you're focusing, I said focus a lot. If you've taken pictures with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you know about the back button focus. So this is the cell phone's way of kind of doing that, but it's actually even cooler. If you touch and hold, it will lock the focus on whatever it is you focused on. You can move your phone to adjust the frame or how you want it to appear, and it stays locked on whatever you focused on. So another tip, especially for video, is to make sure you focus a lot. So when you're holding your phone up and you're locked on to whatever it is you're shooting, especially if it's moving or it's, like I said, video, keep touching the screen on where you want it to focus. That'll help you avoid those moments where you get back and put it on the computer or you play it back right on your phone and you realize that the subject that you were trying to have sharp and crisp in the video or even the photo wasn't sharp and crisp. It was sharp and then it missed it and then it came back. You just want to make sure that whatever moment it is that you're capturing is sharp and crisp the way that you're expecting it to be. And the way to do that is to make sure you focus a lot. One last tip for you is use a third-party camera operation system. So like Adobe Lightroom CC, you can download the app and then use it to control your camera for both photos and video. And then what it does is it opens up more tools and those tools allow you to get a better capture. And there's all kinds of apps out there. You have to play around with it a little bit. The one that I like to use is the Adobe Lightroom CC because I have a plan with them. And it works. It's what I'm used to. Get an app that you're comfortable with and use it to control your photos and your video on your phone, and you're gonna have much better results.